This is Emmanuel here. I'm just gonna walk you guys through how to start doing some Instagram marketing here. And the goal here is to get you guys to a point where you not necessarily where I walk you through specifically how to market on any specific channel, even though we're gonna focus on Instagram. But to let you understand like the different kind of components or different aspects which you need to be aware of when you're creating a content marketing strategy. So let's just get into it real quick. And we're going to skip around here just so you guys understand the basics. But we're trying to get through as much as we can going through this entire process here. So first, we're going to go over your brand strategy because before you can actually start running any kind of like effective content marketing, strategy, you need to be able to understand, just how you should position yourself as a brand. Then we're going to go into the channel strategy, pretty much where you figure out which channel to use, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, writing a blog, or whatever else you decide to do. Next is the implementation piece, where you're actually going to get started, where people talk about the actual design and development of content that actually converts for your customers, as well as how you go about distributing it. And then we're going to go into how to grow your channel. All right, so let's get into it. Obviously, you guys know who I am, Manny, and kind of my background when it comes to Instagram marketing. And now we're going to go into the actual brand strategy piece, right? First, we're going to start by dispelling some myths. A brand is not a logo, right? It's not an identity. It's not how pretty you can make your packaging. Your brand is not a product, right? Like, even though your product is an important piece, that's not what makes a brand specifically. A brand is a person's gut feeling about your product, your service, or your organization as a whole. It's a gut feeling because your brand is it's not defined by individuals or you as a founder, not by markets or the public, but so for example, there's Apple versus Android, right? It's a gut feeling because people are emotional or intuitive, right? In other words, it's not what you say it is, it's what your specific audience says it is, right? But let's look at why branding is vital, right? The first reason is people are inundated with an immense amount of choices when it comes to the kinds of brands that they can buy. Most offerings are pretty similar. You can get pretty much mostly the same outcome, and they have similar quality and features. We tend to base our buying decisions based on trust, right? So for example, there are 1,500 cameras in the market. Like, how does a customer choose which camera to buy? Right? It comes down to trust. Not convinced the value of branding. Let's look at how Coke, the Coke's value, when it comes to, sorry, this is supposed to be million, right here, not 500 billion. But Coke's value, Coke loses an immense amount of value once they remove the brand, when you just have the product, right? Trust comes from meeting and beating customer expectations. And let's look at how it breaks down from the customer side, right? It comes down to this pretty simple equation. Trust is made up of delight plus reliability and presence, right? So delight is I like the brand. Reliability is I can depend on the quality of the brand, and presence, the brand is always on my mind, right? Social media enables you and your team to capitalize on all those points while earning revenue. But the question that most founders typically have is, with all the noise, how does a fledgling brand stand out? Right? And to really understand, we're going to go into the process of customer discovery, or it's also called customer development, right? And so before you can stand out, you need to understand who you're actually selling to and why, right? So using your previous customer discovery, worksheets that we gave you when we were there, you need to create buyer personas and segments. And what buyer personas are the fictional representations or the customer archetypes that encapsulate all the behavior and activities of your real customer base. Right? So there's demographic data, there's pain points, fears, and motivations, there's short and long-term goals, understanding the day-to-day, understanding their online behavior, understanding the buying process. When somebody decides to, that they have a problem that they need to solve, and they need to find a product to help them to be a solution, what is that process they go through from not knowing who you are to becoming a loyal customer? and these different aspects can be used to create a persona like this. But not all sorry, and this is, this is essentially the person's picture, so you can get a visual understanding of who they are, have things around their background, company profile, professional profile, and so on and so forth. But not all personas are the same, right? There are types of personas, right? So there's a primary persona, serve persona, and negative persona. And this comes down to how the customer uses your product. So for example, if you're a company that sells cash registers, what are the different types of personas you need to account for when you are trying to understand who your audience actually is, right? So let's look at the primary persona, the person who actually uses the cash registers, the cashier. Then there's a served persona, the person who benefits from using from the use of the cashier, but they don't actually use it themselves. And then there's a negative persona, right? Person who goes through the self-checkout line, who's not going to be using your product whatsoever. So if you don't accurately understand each of your personas, you'll have no control over your brand. And in order to know where and how to market to them, you need to understand what their buying process actually is, right? So this is where the buyer's journey comes into play. And it's the process buyers go through to become aware of, consider, and evaluate, and eventually decide to purchase your product or service, right? So this is a very condensed version. Buyer's journey can have multiple stages, but generally there's an awareness stage where the customer realizes I have a problem desire, and at that point they don't want to be sold to. They want something to help them figure out a solution to their problems. So when I say a solution, this doesn't necessarily mean a product solution, but rather the actual solution. So for example, if you were, for a company who needs a cash register, they need a way, how they need to figure out ways to, actually a better one would be, I forgot a good example. Let's say somebody wants to, you're selling drills. Now the person's actual problem, again, this is the why behind the why. The actual reason that they're buying the drill is not necessarily because they want to drill a hole in the wall, but because they want to fix their, redesign their kitchen or redesign their living room, right? So at that point, they'd be looking for different options or different, kind of ideas around that actual solution problem that they have, or solutions to that. So like different, living room designs, as opposed to different products. Then at the consideration stages, when they're actually comparing all possible solutions, right? So product solutions in this case. So I should probably be a little bit clearer around that. So awareness stages, they're looking for the actual solution to their problem, their core problem of I have a living room that needs to be changed. And the consideration is they're looking at comparing the actual product solutions.
Let it play. What is on is
Oh, somebody's here. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Sorry, we didn't know you guys were here. Let me see who I am talking to.
Oh yeah, I've been on.
Oh, sorry. When we started, it was literally just me, so I was just recording it for you guys. Okay. Questions, please go ahead.
No, I was just about to speak on the buyer's journey that you were on.
Okay. Yeah.
And I see here you have awareness stage, consideration stage, decision stage.
Yes.
And you're talking about, and this is in relation to maybe like the ad or something like that you've been put out, or are you just talking about as?
Okay, yeah. Let me take a step back. So what the buyer's journey actually is the process through which a customer, the process through which a customer becomes aware of, considers, and evaluates, and then decides to purchase your product or service. So that process, somebody deciding to buy, isn't just a thing where somebody says, I want to buy a drill, and then they go to drillcompany.com, right? There is an entire process through which where they realize I have a problem, right? They look for solutions to that problem. So again, this is talking about that why behind the why concept we touched on when I was there, right? Where the problem in this case is not I want to drill a hole in the wall, but the problem is actually my living room needs to be redesigned, right? So that's what the awareness stage is actually touching on. Like, when do they realize they have a problem or something in their life is not going the way they want it to go? And then how do they go about finding solutions to that core intrinsic problem that you are helping to solve, right? versus the consideration stage of the buyer's journey is when they actually figure out the solutions to that problem. So in this case, they figure out, oh, my kitchen needs new shelves. In order for me to do new shelves, I need to find a drill for said shelf. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then the decision stage is like, okay, they've narrowed it down to 2 to 4 brand solutions, so 2 to 4 drill companies. Hopefully they're yours, or in this case, whatever product you're selling. Now they want more in-depth comparative information around why your product is the best, right? Is everyone following, or is there any, are there any kind of questions around that concept? Okay,
I've got it
I'm gonna keep moving.
understood. This is Kim Roxy.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So once you understand who your personas actually are, and actually I'm going to really quickly go through a quick kind of visual of how you can structure your personas here. So for example, let's say you're Airbnb, right? Your market here could be hosts. Another market could be guests, right? And then there, for example, the different segments underneath them, the way you kind of cut up that market, right? Because saying that all people who are guests are not the same, right? There are people who are traveling by themselves, who are solo travelers, right? Then the people who are traveling together as couples. Then the people who are traveling in groups of 3 or more, right? So a persona is essentially the kind of character archetypes who make up those specific segments that or those specific kind of ways you cut up the market. So, for example, if we're looking at I'm sorry, let me just pull up a quick example here to give you guys a better visual. Hopefully this has a great diagram that I can show you. And again, I'll go through these. I'll go through this again and like throw it all into the deck before we send it out, so you guys can have something to go off of. Let's see a better one. Perfect. Yeah. So here's a better visual of how you can structure your markets and segments. Right. So you have the guests, solo travelers, couples, large groups versus hosts on other people that Airbnb might target, who are you have the landlords and people with extra space. Right. So the personas are the people, or the customer archetypes within each one of those segments. These right here, where you are trying to break down, who these people are. So when it comes to marketing, you can better target the individuals and be able to say, okay, I want to get more people who are, couples who are traveling together. So in order to do that, we need to target, the husband and the wife, or as a traditional, our customer archetype, right? And they may have different roles within that process of actually buying. So let me just keep going here. So once you figure out who those personas are, then you have something. Then you figure out within that specific segment that you're trying to target. So let's say you're trying to target the groups of 3 or more who are traveling together, or family of 3 or more who's traveling together. There are influencers, decision makers, and gatekeepers. Now they may all be one person, but these roles exist throughout all types of market segments that you're going to target, right? So for example, the influencer was somebody who is been tasked to find the solutions they're going to look for. So if they're looking for, the drill, they're going to be people who will be looking for the drill. The gatekeeper is somebody who is like, whose job it is, or not whose job, but who typically throws up barriers to purchasing. So let's say you are a tech company, or let's say you are, so you say you're the drill company, and you're selling to businesses or construction companies who buy drills in mass. A gatekeeper could be somebody who's like, the head of accounting, who is saying, hey, we don't have the budget to do this. We need to be able to justify actually making this purchase, and you need to give them much more information around why this is a good investment, before they would be able to, the decision maker will actually say okay to the purchase. You see what I'm saying? So like, these are the kind of people you need to be aware of when you're selling to either a business or you're selling to a consumer, and you need to be able to have content ready to go, so that once that person shows up, right, you have content to essentially get them out of the way, or make them say yes to the decision. So let's look at the buyer's journey of a typical toy company, right? You can see the decision maker, maybe the father. Again, this is a very typical archetype. This may be vastly different for you, right? The gatekeeper may be the mother, right? But the influence, the person who actually goes in the aisle, right? Or the person who's actually like logs onto the site and says, oh, I want to buy this toy, maybe the child, right? So you need to be able to have to figure out how you can essentially, along the entire process, be able to assuage them of any concerns that they may have. So for example, at the awareness stage, I heard my favorite show has come out with new toys. I want to learn more about all the toy options that are out there, right? The consideration stage is like, which toy do I want out of the whole set, right? I want to see which toy is the coolest and best for me, right? So the content that you'd be producing would be more around those lines, right? Versus at the decision stage, is this toy safe? Will it last for more than 1 month? And this is where the the gatekeeper, decision maker might come into play. I need to know the toy is both safe, so that my child who's maybe young might put it in their mouth, won't get poisoned, and I know that's sturdy, that I won't have to like buy a new one in like a week, right? So this is how you can dictate what kinds of content you're going to be producing at what stage, depending on what stage of the buyer's journey somebody's at. So that way, you're not creating content for the decision stage, right? For somebody who's at the influencer, at the awareness stage, right? Like the kid doesn't want to really care about like the safeness or the sturdiness of the toy, right? They care more about like, hey, which, I want to learn what are all the options that are out there. You see what I'm saying? Does it make any sense to you guys? Okay, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry, 1 second. All right. So now you understand who your personas are, so who you're selling to and what drives them to make a purchase. You know what the buyer's journey is, so the process behind purchasing your product or similar products, and who's involved in the purchasing process, and how you can convince them at each stage. Now we're going to determine how you can leverage social media to actually go and make the sale using content. Now, again, this is just looking at social media. We're going to actually look at specifically Instagram. But this thought process of understanding the personas, this thought process of understanding, the buyer's journey and what issues that they may have, is a template that you can use to go about using any kind of social media platform, right? So let's go through and figure out which platform is right for you based on where you are, right? So they're using your personas, you can figure out, does it match demographically with who I need to, who I want to be targeting, right? Does it, so looking at the purpose, how people use it, does it match with where they are in the buyer's journey, right? Same, best thing for, what it's best for, right? So, Facebook is best for building brand loyalty. So it's more the consideration and decision stage and after, right? Versus, Instagram is best for, brand awareness and lead generation. So getting people from the social media platform into your email list, right? Same thing with LinkedIn, best for B2B, biz dev, great for, the awareness stage, consideration stage. Pinterest, great for awareness and consideration stage. But each of these platforms have their downsides, right? So Facebook has limited reach, right? It was pretty costly, right? Instagram is best for visual content only, visual short bite-sized content, no more than 3 to 5 minutes. LinkedIn, limited interaction. So they're actually getting better. So they're actually getting on par with Instagram. However, understand that, if it's not B2B, probably not best for you, right? Pinterest, images only, right? So, and it's a very, very specific demographic, specifically targeting women, right? So for this exercise, we're trying to attract new customers. So let's look at the channel versatility. How many ways can my team leverage this channel, right? So you can see where along the buyer's journey you can potentially use these platforms, right? But then you need to be able to also consider, like, who your customer demographics are, the personas, and see where they actually end up, where they fall, or which one of these platforms they'll use it. So which one of these platforms they use and how they use it, as well as, where along the buyer's journey that they use, you can best reach out to them based on the kind of content that they consume. So if it's people who are just browsing Instagram for like quick things they can like here and there and fun things to watch and for entertainment, then you're probably going to be sticking to Instagram mostly in the awareness stage, phase of things, right? So then you can look at the average order value. So if you're like an e-commerce company, like what is the what's the general price range of product that people tend to buy, right? So Instagram is $65, Pinterest is 58, Facebook is 55, LinkedIn is 44. So if you're trying to get somebody to buy something directly on that channel, here's like kind of like the band, the band that you can fall into that for consistent sales without like being a little bit weird for people when it comes to how they go about making a purchase. Anything more than that, then you probably want to get them onto your site first before you ask them to make that product purchase, as opposed to like running an ad directly on that site. Next is like, what's the average conversion rate for your channel? So Facebook is 1.85, Instagram is 1%, Pinterest is like 0.5%, and LinkedIn is about the same, right? So just being able to use this as a kind of like a guidepost to understand that when I post, here's the amount of like conversions that I should see based on where I'm trying to post. And we're going to kind of skip to this really quickly. So in order to actually go about using Instagram, or in order to go about using any kind of social media platform and create some sort of like content positioning, you need to understand what your niche is first, right? Your niche and focus. So you're probably like, what's a niche? The niche is pretty much your topic or industry or focus, right? So it's defined by the product or service that you offer. So what that means is it's how you aim to provide value to your potential customers. Because right now there's so many people out there that are creating all types of content. All you see, let's say for example on Instagram, is like a bunch of like people on the beach or traveling somewhere or some sort of food thing, which is fine and all, but you need to be able to understand like when a user goes about deciding to follow you, you're essentially that's valuable real estate that you're essentially not buying up, but that you're essentially like taking up for the user's feed. So when they're choosing to say, to like follow you, they're actually asking you, why should I hire you? What am I hiring you for, right? And that's where figuring out what your niche and focus is allows you to have consistency when it comes to presenting content. So when you have that consistent reliability. So like if you are doing something around like let's say you're the drill company and you've chosen to create your brand around like different house design ideas, you can't then start posting things about dogs that people are like, I didn't hire you for this, and they're gonna unfollow you, right? So by choosing a niche and focus, it kind of gives you those like that guideline and a framework by which to look at how you go about creating content, what kind of value you should consistently provide whenever somebody looks at one of your posts, right? So again, this goes into the trust equals reliability. So brand trust comes from reliability plus delight plus presence, right? Your theme and focus are defined by your personas. So looking at the demographic data, pain points and motivations, short and long-term goals, understanding their day-to-day, their online behavior, you can start using this to define what your niche should be, right? So for example, looking at my profile, I'm targeting people with specific age, their pain points specifically when it comes to social media and how to consume content. It's like there are too many low quality, fragmented, and hard to follow business content, right? And their goal is to attract new customers and establish their brand as like leaders in the space, right? So when it comes to their day-to-day, they're constantly trying to learn new things, set themselves apart, even in their downtime. So they're consuming media to better enrich themselves. And that's reflected in their online behavior. And they value, when it comes to the voice and tone, they value frank, direct, educational content that really just gets to the point of what they're trying to learn, right? So what my niche is entrepreneurship, and my focus is best practices or trend analysis, so looking at new trends and saying here's how you can apply it to your business. And they love the frank commentary on different concepts around how to go about maybe raising capital or whatever the hell it may be, right? So people in the entrepreneurship space will consistently come back to me and be on the lookout for my content because I provide value to them, right? I provide content that they can rely on. That's the same in terms of what the kinds of things it covers, but it consistently meets a certain level of value that they see as something worth coming back to on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to get more followers, right? So for example, when I compose something on like, here's how I do something about Instagram hashtags, right? And I walk them through it. and they not know how to like post whatever to use hashtags effectively in their social media content. Their next question is, what can I use to save time, doing these hashtags, and then I can easily go in and sell them on whatever I want to sell them, right? So the same thing can happen to you. So let's say you're talking about like, you're the drill company and you're creating content around like, here are different content inspiration ideas. Here's one for your kitchen, here's one for your kitchen, here's one for your living room, or like here's like a how-to guide on how to go about like, putting up new cabinets, whatever. Then their next question would be, okay, you solved my problem at the awareness stage. You solved my problem of knowing what kind of living room design, or what kind of cabinet design, or what kind of kitchen design that I want to do. How do I go about now getting that done? What products do I need to buy to do this? And then you can sell them on the actual drill itself, right? So this is how you start using the content that you post on these channels as a way to get people either to your site via lead generation, saying, oh, okay, sign up here if you want to like learn more about X, right? Or to get them to just buy the product outright. And again, so just like that, I created an opportunity to sell them on the hashtag on research tools, right? So for example, then this is what I was talking about, the trust is equal to delight. I like Manny's content. Manny consistently posts effective and helpful content, and his frequent posts remind and push me to keep at it. And so the next thing is we're going to go cover the theme, right? And this is just your visual identity. Just make sure, it's consistent, and whatever works, you can test things out for sure, but once you find something that people really, really like, stick to what works, right? Again, this is the reliability piece. You want your followers to instantly identify the content that you post, right? You want it to blend into the background there, right? So color, I can have a color coordinated theme. You can have a color block theme. There's a bunch of things out there. I encourage you to go and research it, but this is just kind of like the groundwork stuff you need to have for your content that you post, so on and so forth. So explore what themes work with your brand aesthetic, and then go from there. Next thing is your profile, right? So this is how you structure your profile. And it's the first thing somebody sees when they land on your page, right? And this is touching back on that interview thing. Your bio serves as a job interview, right? Why should people hire you for their news feed? First, you're going to talk about who you are. Like, how do you identify yourself? What is the passion or purpose? Like, I'm a VC for people of color. Cool. What do you do? I'm an advisor at Google. That's my actual job function, or whatever like that, right? As it relates to my topic. So why should people respect you at all? And the next thing is like why customers should care in general. Like, what is the value? What is the general value or the niche or focus, right, that you provide, right? And my thing is, strategy, not quotes. Right? Just telling people why they should invest their time and give you that very, very valuable feed real estate. Next, we're going to go into the content and the distribute. Sorry, real quick on the profile or the profile structure stuff. Are there any questions here? Okay, I'm gonna keep going.
I don't have any questions.
Great, awesome. Next is content and distribution, right? So this covers what you should post, and there are two fundamental aspects to define when you're deciding what kind of content to post. There's the substance, what is the content about, and then there's the actual design. So we're going to cover substance, and again, this is just and your personas and buyer's journey will serve as your guiding star based on who you're targeting and where they are in that buyer's journey, or there's awareness, consideration, or decision stage, right? It'll serve as the guidance star to tell you, what the content should be about, right? So there's the type. Are you educating, entertaining, or promoting, right? There's a granularity. So what's the depth of what you're trying to cover? So like, is it very short, digestible content, like for like Instagram, versus, or is it like very in-depth like analysis, which is much more, which are things that should probably be on like a YouTube channel or something like that, right? Then there's a granularity. Sorry, I apologize. Sorry, granularity. So the depth and breadth of content a potential customer is willing to absorb varies greatly based on where they are, right? So if they're at the awareness stage and they just realize that they have a problem or a desire, right, or they're just coming to terms that something in their life is not really going well and they want to change it, they probably don't want something really, really in depth, right? They just want something like quickly like browse to be able to say, oh yeah, no, that is what my problem is. That is a solution to my problem. Let me look more on whatever XYZ may be, right? So people realize, hey, my kitchen is just, something's wrong with my kitchen, or something's wrong with my living room. It's just not really the way I want it to feel. It's not the aesthetic that I really, really like. You'd probably be better off giving them like, hey, here are some great living room design ideas that they can quickly browse through, as opposed to a whole in-depth guide on how to position the pieces of your living room. Right? Like people aren't at that point in their buying cycle yet, or their buyer's journey yet. They just want some really quick ideas. So again, this is how the buyer's journey really impacts the content that you're going to end up creating. Whereas at the consideration stage, where they realize, okay, yeah, I actually want to go about designing my living room, then you can start going to, okay, if you want to design your living room, here are the ways you go about structuring or designing your living room, or putting together the different elements of your living room. Like that's much more in depth, right? It doesn't really have to be a long video essay that's like an hour long, but it could be like maybe like a 2 or 3 minute video, like, oh, here's how you go about designing your living room, your living room in depth, or here's how you go about designing the different elements of your kitchen, right? Again, these serve as different ways for you to get them from, hey, I'm trying to solve my problem, to, okay, how do I go? What are the products that I actually go about buying, right? Tell me solve that problem. Anyway, sorry. And we can go into this. So this is going to the actual subject and structure, right? So this is like, once I know, yes, my customer wants to find some design ideas, how do I go about like defining what that content will be? That'll be the most convincing, right? So there's the subject, and you have some sort of optional structure, right? So it can be an industry best practice and a how-to guide, or an industry best practice and an analysis critique, or an industry best practice that's structured as a do's and don'ts, right? Anyway, so for example, it could be a product showcase where you display your product, or a product showcase where you display your process, right? Or where you showcase how to use your product. You can showcase your product's benefits, or you can compare your competitor's benefits, or you can compare your product to a competitor's process. And again, we'll give you all this so you can kind of refer to whatever you want. But this is how you go about structuring the actual content itself, right? I'm sorry. Okay. So we're going to go through a quick example, right? So you find that customers use Instagram mostly at the awareness or consideration stage, and you're selling hair products, right? So for example, the type of content could be educational. The subject would be an industry best practice, right? Because it's Instagram, you want the granularity to be brief but in depth, right? And you want the structure to be maybe either do's and don'ts, or if you want it to be in depth, it could be a how-to guide, right? So here's an example of like an educational industry do's and don'ts on an industry best practice, right? So skincare do's and don'ts when traveling to sunny areas, right? Versus the same educational educational content on industry best practice, but one that's more in depth would be a how-to guide on like your morning skin routine, right? So you can kind of use like this like structure that I've given you here to determine what kind of content you can produce that'll make you stand out from everybody else, as opposed to having just like photos of your product on a countertop. That's not really going to get anyone to buy. But if you actually solve their problem, then they're much more likely to say, okay, this is cool. I think you're the best brand for me. What products do you have to help me solve this problem that I have, right? So this is some basic stuff. And again, we're going to give you this template, so you don't have to worry about like really, you can sort of dig into it yourself. And again, we're always here for you if you want to ask us any questions. But we're going to skip to the actual design piece, right? So there are different types of visual layouts for you to use here. Feel free to, again, go through this on your own time to figure out what kind of content to use. But the more in depth, the more meaty the content. So if it's an ebook, the more you want to hide it behind some sort of paywall, or not paywall, but hide it behind some sort of lead generation wall, so people give you their information in exchange for like the amount of value that you're giving them. If it's an ebook, report, white paper, those are things you want to hide behind, an email wall, so you can have a new lead to follow up on. Versus just like if it's just photography, then if it's just photography, then you can just like post it on Instagram or something like that. So when it comes to how you go about, so this is like the very kind of like structured way to go about figuring all this stuff out. The quick and dirty way that I like to tell people if they just want to like cheat, like if they don't want to put a lot of effort behind it, is to literally just figure out what kind of content people need at whatever stage of the buyer's journey. Go on YouTube and type that into like the search bar, right? And then just like find like what some of the most compelling things to post, and just like put it in your own words. That's like the quick and dirty way to figure out, like to do literally everything I just talked about. The reason why I went through the very formulaic structure is so that you can understand how the experts do it. So you don't, so when you get to a point where you don't want to start following people, you can do it on your own. But if again, we understand you have a lot of things that you're working on. So literally just like we can go through an example here. Let's say my Instagram profile is, let's go through what I do here. So we're going to go through a quick example of my Instagram profile. So again, I talk about like entrepreneurship stuff. Great. I talk about social media marketing. Awesome. So what I can do is go on YouTube and type in things around, let's say, Instagram marketing. All right. Then you can start seeing what are the different trending things that people are talking about. Then to find like some of the most popular ones, you can watch it and just reiterate what they say, but in very bite-sized, in very bite-sized, fashion on your Instagram profile, your Facebook profile, or wherever else you are trying to promote your content on. So that's like the quick and dirty way. Anyway, so we're gonna skip we're gonna kind of skip the rest of the stuff because this kind of goes into a lot more of the actual specifics of how you can go about, like, visually creating stunning content. Again, we can go through that stuff later, on your own time when we give you the deck. But what's really important here is the actual distribution process of this. Right? Like, how do you go about making sure that your content is actually seen, right? And it's important, in order to do this, you need to understand how these algorithms actually work to ensure that your post does really well, right? So first we're gonna go through like Instagram or any social media platforms incentives, right? So they run on advertising model. I mean, they need to monetize on one thing: attention. The more attention that they can garner on their algorithms, the more valuable, the more things that they can sell, right? So what does that mean for your content and your profile, right? So if Instagram has 1 billion daily active users, right, and each of which post anywhere from 1 to 4 posts a day, right? So being conservative, that's like at the very least, that's 1 billion pieces of content that Instagram needs to figure out how to make sure that they can maximize the most amount of value from, so that people stay on the platform as long as possible. So Instagram, who values quality content and quality quotation marks, has to sort through that content to make sure that their users are actually engaged. So what that means for your post, this is very important, so we need to pay attention, is within the first hour of engagement for your post dictates your post performance moving forward, right? So because that's all the time that they have. They don't have time to like watch your specific post over a long period of time. They're just going to look at that first hour, maybe 2 to 3 hours max, because Instagram kind of like has been changing the algorithm a little bit here and there. So like that time frame, that window has been maybe expanding, contracting. So to be safe, I'd shoot for the first hour to get as much engagement as possible. But you can maybe the first 1 to 3 hours is good enough in some cases. Now, Instagram doesn't automatically share your content to all of your followers, right? You initially only get exposed to about 9 to 10% of your followers, right? And again, these numbers change all the time. So don't really worry about the specific numbers. Worry about the specific content that like your posts only get shared with a small amount of your followers, right? So the more of these types of engagements that you get, whether it's likes, saves, shares, comments, right? The more valuable Instagram ranks your content as, right? So the more valuable your content, the more likely Instagram is to share it with a larger audience in that initial 10%, right? So again, don't focus on the specific numbers here, because there's a time where it's 10%, then there's a time where it's like 3 to 4%. So these numbers, change all the time depending on what the Instagram engineers or the social media engineers are actually feeling. So just be aware of, like, you have this like kind of like small test group that they show with, because they don't want to pollute all the users' feeds with like nonsense content, right? They're going to test it with that small content first, that small audience first. If it does well, then it'll show it to more of your audience, and it keeps doing that incrementally until you hit some sort of like critical threshold, then you become viral, right? So this is why you shouldn't ever purchase fake followers. because what they do is they drain your engagement, your initial engagement numbers, because like it doesn't show it to a consistent 10, right? It doesn't show it, yeah, they may show it to like maybe 1% of your most like loyal followers. They'll get it if they say, I want to put on notifications. But the 10 to 4% of people that they show it to is somewhat random. So if you have, let's say 50% or 30% of your followers are fake, what that does is put you in a position where you now have this maybe this 50% of your group of your audience who will not engage with your content whatsoever, because they're not actual real people, they're bots, right? So they're just like sitting, they're just empty, it's not empty, but they're just like stagnant, non-engaging accounts that literally make it so that if your first post is shown to 10% of your audience, but it's 10% of the audience that's all fake, that means your post will go nowhere. You see what I'm saying? So just be aware of how like these kind of fake followers, fake engagement can potentially hurt your profile. So, and again, not all engagement is the same. The higher the following and engagement of the people who interact with your content, the higher their engagement is valued by Instagram, right? Usually known as power users. So that's the reason why if The Rock likes your post, all of a sudden you're going to go viral, right? So the more engagement each user has, right, the more people that follow and engage with that user's post, when they like your content, it's going to essentially yield higher dividends and tell Instagram to expose it to more people, because those power users think that it's good. So a regular one-for-one thing is like somebody who has less than 2,000 followers, engagements at 1%, versus a power user is like anywhere from 5 to 100,000. Sorry. So a power user has like 5 to 100 times the value, where they have, their followers are 5K or more, and their engagement is at 3% or greater, right? So power users provide power likes, power saves, power shares, and power comments. And so it's vital that you include them in your strategy to gain reach for your posts, as they'll boost your engagement, right? So this is where like influencer marketing comes into play. So if you can get influencers to do a shout out, or you can get influencers to either post or repost your content or whatever it may be, that'll get you a lot more people coming to your page every single time, right? So now we actually go into the distribution piece. So there's hashtags, there's stories, and then there's engagement groups. So hashtags are used as a discovery tool to find dope brands and topics that they find interesting. So for example, with my post here, I got 44,000, people that I reached. 44,000 people who weren't in my network. 47,000 people came from hashtags, right? My total impressions were 50K. I apologize. 47,000 people came from hashtags of that 50K, right? So this presents an opportunity for you to be able to essentially get your content discovered by audiences outside of your network. So it was essentially leverage this massive 1 billion person network to get people who never heard of you to come check out your content and your brand, right? And in order to use it carefully, you need to implement something called the staircase method, right? So you got anywhere from 24 to 30 hashtags that you do per post, 30 being the absolute max. Any more than that, Instagram's gonna think that you're spamming. In order to be safe, I typically keep it to 24 just to be safe, but that's all you need, right? So what you're gonna do is break them up into 3 sets based on their relative size, right, or the amount of engagement that are happening within that hashtag. So what happens then is the engagement from the small hashtags ranks you on the medium ones, and then the engagement you get from the medium hashtags rank you on the large, right? Think of it like an avalanche. It's like it's compounding. So the next question is, how do you determine what counts as a small, quote unquote, small hashtag, medium, or large hashtag for your brand? Because it changes. Because again, I have 8,000 followers, and I get about anywhere from 3 to 7,000 likes per post. So what counts as a large hashtag, like for me, is different from what a large hashtag is for you, right? So when you're looking at small, you should easily be able to show up on the most popular or trending tab for the small hashtag, versus medium is, for your best post might show up here sometimes, right? So and for large, you can really show up here, but you do still show up after like maybe 1 or 2 swipes, right? So what you're looking at is, let's say, I'll literally show you how you can take a look at that. So for example, let's look at this. Let's say fitness quotes. looking here, the one, so again, you're looking at the top posts, 56,000, 1,000, 1,000, 3,000, 4,000. 841 is what this guy probably just posted, so that's why he's up there. But because they maybe get consistent, high amount of engagement, they do really, really well. So that's why they're showing up here. So just look at what the average is here in the top post, and that'll help you figure out whether or not this hashtag is for you. And again, 832,000 posts per day on average are going in here. So you're fighting against 832,000 different people, right? So this probably wouldn't be a small hashtag for you if you maybe get like 100 or 200 or 300 likes on your post, right? You're probably going to look for some of this in maybe like the 5, 10, 15,000, post range. Anyway, so that's an intro. So let's go through the different sizes of Instagram hashtags here. So you have your micro hashtags, so 15K to 25K, right? That's good for people who maybe get like 200 to 300 likes per post, and we can actually go and find this hashtag to kind of give you an idea of what that would look like. So hashtag Yorkie problems. There you go. So right now it's 31,000, but you get the idea. Okay, it's actually pretty high. So it's actually pretty high. But so this is where the research comes into play. You just need to be able to, on your phone, you'll be able to get an idea of what that may be. So on the web, it's a little bit different, the layout here. But the top post tab will, it's an infinite scroll. So I would just recommend looking at like maybe the 10th or 20th row down, so to see just to get an idea of just how well you might do if you post here. And let that be your guide of of whether or not to decide to use this hashtag or not as your small, medium, or large. Then you have the mini with 50K to 90K, compact 100K to 250K. Sedans. Anything from medium onwards, I wouldn't even recommend touching on, because again, you're going against 13 million different posts, right? Everyone's trying to get there. This is per day, so everyone's trying to get there. So just let this be your guide as to understand whether or not you should try to use it within your strategy. So just like cars, they're vehicles to drive audiences from the topics that they follow, whether it's Yorkie problems or whether it's how to cook amazing amazing sweet potato pies, to your content in your particular profile. So I tend to use something called the 9-point checklist to understand which hashtags to use. Check the popularity, how often is it used, average engagement for the top 15 to 20 images, videos, right? And like get like the average of each to be able to understand like what kind of engagement you need to have. The average number of stories, like how much competition is there in the stories per day, and see in whatever the average number of stories per day is, then you'll know whether or not to use that hashtag in your stories, right? The best format. So if all the content there is videos, you probably shouldn't be posting photographs. If all the content there is photographs, you probably shouldn't be posting videos, right? Does your audience post here? Like check this, do my followers and their target audience use this specific hashtag or check out this specific hashtag, right? And 9, do competitors or industry leaders use it, right? And 8 and 9 can be solved by just checking out what number 9 is. So look at who some of your similar competitors are, or people who post content about the topics that you talk about, right? And then see what hashtags they use, and see if they are posting in that hashtag. And what you can even do is once you go to their profile, let's say we go to Gary V. And I know you may have different feelings on whatever. Look at what kind of hashtags he uses here. I'm not sure. Does he even use hashtags? He's so big he doesn't necessarily need to. Let's look at let's look at some of my content, right? So let's say somebody comes to my profile and see I use bloggers of Instagram as a hashtag. What you can then do is say, okay, maybe bloggers of Instagram is 1 million people, 1.5 million people. Maybe it's too big for me. But what other hashtags are there, right? And you can kind of check that out. Okay, well, a smaller one is blogging, right? Or pro blogging. 677, 502, 304, 154, 1,047, 714. let's say you're maybe you get 300, 400, 500 likes per post. Okay, that you could probably still end up ranking here, right? So this would probably be like either your medium or your large hashtag. So this is how you can kind of use your competitors or your people who post similar content to you or related content to you, and help them let them be your guide to see what kind of hashtags to use for what types of posts, right? So small for a tiny brand. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I have dogs here. I apologize. Anyway, so again, when it comes to relative, I apologize. We live in DC, so there are fighter jets flying around constantly. So 15 to 25K hashtag would be small for a tiny brand, right? Or maybe small or medium for a tiny brand, depending on like what kind of activity is there. But for me, who I get anywhere from 4 to 7K per post, right? Anyway, I used to. Now I'm only like 2 to 3K. For me, a small will be 100K post, right? So just being able to understand where you fall into that, that hierarchy. And this, again, you need to, it's not going to be something that you're going to get, like, you're going to ace the first time. You just need to experiment and see what works for you, and you can go from there. And then last thing is cycle through your hashtags regularly. Posting the same hashtags regularly causes Instagram to believe that you're spamming and you're just like spamming that specific hashtag. So just try to cycle through the different hashtags, right? And this destroys your reach and subsequently hurts your engagement. So you're gonna take these, break the 30 hashtags into 3 sets, and then duplicate each one of these 3 times, and then you'll have a total of 90 hashtags for you to cycle through regularly. Right? Next is Instagram Stories. And this allows you to preview and showcase upcoming and recently launched content to keep your audience engaged, as well as helps you talk to your audience regularly, so you don't have to like post amazing, well-designed content every single time. You can post more digestible, funny, memes here and there on your Instagram Stories, so people can keep being engaged with your brand without having to consistently post some really, really, really well-designed content on a regular basis. This is what I do, because I only post like maybe once or twice a month, right? So in order to keep my people, happy and placated, I post stories regularly, and I get about anywhere from 1 to 2K, views per story. And here's how you can kind of use it to kind of lead up to the amazing content that you're gonna post. There's like the ideation phase where like, hey, help me pick what kind of content to post. You can use some sort of poll, if you're gonna see like how engaged your audience actually is. So this is like the title card for my content. Then there's the development. It's like, okay, so people want to learn more about optimizing my Instagram bios. Cool. Here is what it is, and it's gonna be dropping on Thursday. People get engaged, people get excited. You maintain the excitement. People are, and then when you actually launch, people are gonna be who've been like waiting for this content for like maybe weeks or months or whatever, will then go immediately to your brand, right? And then once you actually launch, you keep fostering engagement and loyalty by sharing the results and getting feedback on what could have been done better. Like, hey, we hit 5,000 likes, or hey, we did this, whatever, or we ranked on this on XYZ thing. Now, let me know what you didn't understand. We can talk about it either in the stories format, or I can make a post to clarify it later on, or whatever it may be. And this is how you foster engagement. This is how you make people actually enjoy and engage with your actual brand. Right? Analyze, rinse, repeat, make tweaks if necessary. All right. You can always use hashtags. You can also use hashtags in stories to drive new traffic from users that follow the hashtag story, right? And that'll help you. If you click on this little, circular icon in the top right-hand corner, you can kind of see for each kind of hashtag what the competition is, and you just use the hashtags that'll give you a good amount of engagement. Next thing is engagement groups, right? So this is used to grow engagement and brand awareness, but if used properly, can allow you to mass a pretty massive following, right? So there are 2 types of engagement groups. There's the organic engagement groups, and then there's artificial engagement groups. Organic is better because you're not necessarily gaming the system, whereas artificial is proceed with caution. Like there is an ROI. I'm not gonna pretend that there isn't. However, Instagram is constantly trying to fight people using this. So just be aware that if you do use that option, you kind of put yourself in a position where your account can potentially get blacklisted. If you use the wrong groups, and people have the Instagram detects that kind of shady behavior. So with organic, you're like pretty much just networking, going on Instagram, going on Facebook or whatever, finding different groups who are on Instagram growth or who are using, um, or LinkedIn engagement groups or whatever it may be, and people who are in that same kind of niche that you're in. So if you're, if you're selling like, drills, find people who are doing Instagram, but like with like, furniture, or Instagram with like, do it yourself or whatever it may be. And like whenever you make a post, they'll like your stuff and you can like their stuff too. Artificial though, is where, this is like talking about Telegram and DM groups where you'll literally just go on there and there's like you go there like 4 or 5 or 7 or 10 or whatever the number is. Sometimes it can be up to 30. You like 30 posts, and then 30 people will like your post. Right? They'll like, save, and share and content in whatever your post. So it's kind of like a like for like thing. It's a pretty time intensive. So like for every post you should do, you probably spend like 30 minutes to an hour in here. Which again, when as a founder, that trade, I don't know if that trade-off is worth it for you. It really depends on like what your schedule looks like. And again, it's up to you. And what that does is essentially, and because there's a lot of like really high, high quote unquote value power users on here, like people who like have anywhere from like 1 million followers to like 500,000 followers or 100,000 followers who are on here. When they like your stuff, it's gonna mean that you do get a bit of a boost. But again, Instagram is constantly trying to figure out ways to prevent this. So just proceed with caution, right? When it comes to the pros and cons, with organic, you're growing an engaged audience network. You can, tap into that network of people who you're talking to. Well, let's say you're selling, power tools. You find a Facebook group of like do-it-yourself moms, and you post, content to help them like, create, or create a better home or create a better kitchen or whatever, create a better living room, whatever the hell it may be. By creating amazing content constantly, they're going to be much more likely to start following your content regularly, and they'll actually become one of your actual followers, right? You can actually hone your brand content with engaged people who will give you feedback and say, hey, I love your last post. I think you should fix XYZ thing. Here's what, and you can actually do customer discovery and actually grow a better understanding of what your brand actually is and how you can essentially reach your consumers. All right. The downside is a bit time consuming. It takes time to build an engaged audience network, right? But once you do, they're there with you forever, right? And with this, there's no risk because Instagram understands that, oh, people are coming from Facebook, or people coming from LinkedIn, or people coming from X blog that has a very high Google rating. So okay, they're probably this is probably good engagement versus like coming from like those DM groups that I talked about. Like Instagram knows the URLs these things are coming from. So what that does for Instagram is say, okay, I know that you are not, this is like, from an engagement group, and we're going to penalize that and say, okay, we're going to hurt your reach. Now, these groups are constantly coming up with different ways to get around that. But again, it's just a constant type of war. So just be aware of that. So they give you a lot of good, like really, really good, followers, relatively effortless, in that like if there are ways to even like make it so that you don't have to like actually like people's stuff. You can pay X amount and they'll like automatically like your stuff for you. Whenever you post, you just post a link and people start doing it. But again, there's the downside of Instagram potentially hurting your account's reach for like anywhere from like 3 to 6 months. So just understand that trade-off. You can use one or both of these to bolster the reach of your brand's content. So when it comes to growing your channel, it comes down to consistency, being consistent. Posting regularly is very, very important. If you can't post regularly because you're doing, you're too busy running your business, we understand. At least try to post a story or two. So that way Instagram sees you're still engaging an active audience. Just make sure that whatever stories you're posting are really, really, there are things that your audience likes. The easiest way to do this is to essentially just find memes and GIFs that are relevant to your specific, audience, or whenever you guys are doing anything dope and fun with your brand. So let's say you go to a conference or whatever it may be, you may meet some interesting people, or give your opinion about like, business or whatever it may be. Like, let's say you're targeting business owners within a certain demographic. Talk about your experiences as a founder, or say if you're selling drill or power tools, talk about some of the ways that you go about like doing things or cutting corners and saving your audience time. And it can be a quick kind of in person, just turn the camera on and talk to the camera format that will take 5 to 10 minutes, but it'll essentially keep your channel alive and tell Instagram that, yeah, hey, yes, they're not posting traditionally regularly, but they are like communicating via Instagram stories and people are following them. So we're not going to hurt their reach, right? Because again, Instagram is just constantly trying to figure out which profiles are trash and we should just not waste our energy and resources on. Because again, this is all computing power that Instagram has to pay for. Like this is processing power that they have servers and things like that. So if your profile is not yielding consistent value to the audience and keeping people on the Instagram profile or Facebook profile or LinkedIn or whatever it may be, your reach is gonna be affected because they're not gonna bother like introducing you into the algorithm of posts that are going out there. The more engagement with Instagram, the more they value your content, and the more they show your posts to other people. So again, this talks about the reliability and the presence piece, right? This is why you should probably maintain some sort of content calendar. Have one for for January. Here's the major things we're going to post for February. Here are the major things we're going to post, and keep track of where they are in the development cycle. If you want, I can give you some content templates. Let me know, and I'll drop that inside the folder of with this deck as well, so you can kind of see. Okay, here's how I can go about making posts like the way Manny does.
I would like you to drop some, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So document, organize your ideas in one easy to access place. Actually, another thing that we're actually coming up with, and this is kind of, let me just pull it up real quick, is we'll be coming up, because I know the process of figuring out like the idea piece of this is pretty tough. So it's kind of like letting you guys peek behind the curtain here real quick. Let's make sure I did the right one. Okay. We're actually coming up with a here it is, campaign please. We're coming up with like a way where we'll create content ideas for you and show you how and give you examples of how they would actually work. So for example, this would be like a breakdown of a local best practice for potential customers, and you're using lifestyle photography, right? So you can kind of introduce customers to how to do something like a local, right? So this is like to grow local brand awareness, right? Versus let's say something like this where you're like establishing expertise. So use detail enhancing photography to break down an industry best practice for your consumers, right? So for example, this is how you do some sort of pose. You actually go into like the specific details that are important for them to do it properly, right? So you can walk like, bend your left knee or whatever. So you get an idea. So we'll have this. We're working on this in the background because I know all the stuff is a lot, and as founders don't have a lot of time to do all this research. So we're going to come up with it. We're working to build this thing. So we'll give you those ideas, like at least a starting point with some templates. And obviously right now, like right away after this, we're going to email you with all this stuff. But within the future, look forward to us providing that content for you, so you do so you can spend a lot less time in the research phase and much more time in like the actual like creating content and just posting it quickly. And the last thing is stories. Enable your audiences to discover your brand. People are video is quickly becoming one of the most engaging aspects of social media. People spend literally hours and hours just like looking at different Instagram videos. I'm sure we all do. And the key to stories is posting frequently, because it's this is not like one of your posts where it's going to constantly be up there. And again, now that Instagram is actually removing likes, people it actually become much more beneficial for you to post more frequently, and because people you don't have to worry about people like going to your profile, checking out and seeing, oh, you only have 10 likes, why would I follow this person? They're getting rid of all that stuff. So now you can just focus on just like creating content. But what stories lets you do is just like post things regularly. Don't really worry about like the aesthetic piece. Don't really worry about like making it look really fancy, really nice. You can literally just post funny stuff and people will follow you all the time. For example, look at me. On my actual accounts, you can see I spend a lot of time making sure that there's a certain like brand aesthetic and feel. There's a certain kind of like structure that I have. But with my stories, I'm just posting like places that I've traveled, right? Because like some of the times, like when it comes to entrepreneurs, they like the whole like inspirational whatever, or saying that, hey, this is what are you doing, what are you working on? And I get more personal, get more fun, get more like, I understand the kinds of people and the kinds of funny things that my audience likes to see. So you just literally just like, type in like something funny that happened to you, or, look up some funny, or like save a funny meme you find on Facebook and like repost it there. And, people, will follow you. Like, for example, like I have like startup, like a whole thing on like, startup life, where I talk about, if it actually decides to load. Yeah. Like, for example, like, here's a meme on like, how I as a startup founder, who I just like try to game the free trial thing. So I make like 1,000 different emails, and pretend as if like I'm new here, right? So these are the different funny quick things you can do. They'll take like 5 or 10 minutes. That like you can essentially go and like you can do like offhand that, and people will literally eat this up, right? So again, I got like 200, 300 likes. This is when like, I first started doing stories a short while ago, and you'll get like a whole bunch of engagement right there on your stuff, right? Versus like, let's say, trying to figure out. Anyway, whatever. So yeah, these are different ways you can kind of like just post things that aren't necessarily like, that don't necessarily take a lot of time for you to curate, but you can essentially still get a good amount of consistent engagement, and then go from there. Right? So I'm just getting into stories myself. I am trying to post a bunch, but I get about 200 consistent people who like my stuff regularly, and so whenever I post, like within the first like 10, 20 seconds, those 200 people are dropping likes immediately, right? Then more recently, I started getting much more. So I started getting more. I'm regularly hitting maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000. Every once in a while I get like, get that 1,000 to 2,000 person range. I'm starting to see that it actually starts affecting the amount of likes that I got. So I stopped posting for almost like 6 months because I started working with 1863, started doing a lot more of this stuff. So I just stopped using Instagram for a while. But at one point in time, I was hitting anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000, Instagram story views regularly, right? So being able to essentially, so I have a long way to go to work my way back up there. And this is the downside of not being consistent, because if you stop, it takes a while for you to grow again. So it's been, for the past like 2-3 weeks, I've been like, trying to, build it back up. But if you become consistent and post regularly, it can yield amazing dividends. So whenever I would say, hey, check out this new product, I would easily get anywhere from 400 to 500 people going from my Instagram story to whatever product or whatever brand or whatever thing that I wanted. When I would say, oh, hey, go to 1863, you would see jumps from about 2,000 to 3,000 people going from my Instagram story to 1863. So again, being able to really leverage social media and understand what value that you're providing people and why people would want to hire you to essentially take up that screen real estate, right? Because again, this is the currency of the world, right? There's a reason why Donald Trump is the president, because he was able to garner so much attention. Attention is extremely valuable, right? So in actual funding, Hillary Clinton raised like $1 billion, right? But I think that and Trump only raised like 400 pounds, $1 million. But when it came to the actual attention that he was garnering and the free media coverage he was getting, it was like $2, $3, $4, $5 billion in free media coverage. So even though Hillary Clinton outspent her and spent him actual dollars, he was able to get so much more attention that all the competition was centered around him, and that's why he became president. Right? Attention is the currency of our society right now. So if you can essentially be able to gather that attention, monetizing it becomes exponentially easier. But in order to gather it, you can understand what value you're providing to specific people, for specific personas, and what they want to see when they want to see it. Okay. So magic number, 3 to 5 stories a day. The more engagement you bring, we've already talked about all that stuff. Using locations is good because essentially to bring people from specific locations to your account whenever they're looking, because anyone who's nearby will see, hey, here are new stories near you, and then your post will be on there. Again, using hashtags is a great way to get engagement. I mean, you can get anywhere from 50 to 1,000 people coming from a specific hashtag, right? Like using that hashtag like entrepreneurship, right, or entrepreneur lifestyle, or entrepreneur like whatever, can get you an amazing amount of story views. So you just literally just Google like what Instagram story hashtags for X topic, and it'll give you a pretty solid list, right? commenting, so another way of growing your brand is something called the $80 strategy. Pick 9 hashtags in your niche. Pick ones that have pretty good engagement. People are always talking. So whenever people are on the posts, so they're posted regularly, and also people are commenting all the time. Then you leave your 2 cents on each of the top 10 posts in each hashtag, right? Be sure that you're adding value and insight, right? And if you do that, like the amount of times where I got into an argument on Instagram with people who are saying, oh, do XYZ strategy, I'm like, hey, that's a stupid idea, do this instead. I'll get like 30, 40 people who go to my profile from that post, because again, you have to gather that attention, right? Now, I'm not saying go out there and be like Wendy's, who's like, everyone's seen the Wendy's Twitter who shit talks pretty much every single like other like food brand, but like there are ways for you to essentially get people to like pay attention to your comment out of everybody else, right? And this is, so in total, this is $1.80 of your thoughts in the internet on a daily basis. And like you can easily get anywhere from 50 to 60 followers a week. I've seen some numbers of people maybe getting like over 100 to 120 followers a week doing this. Again, this is a big investment. Not gonna pretend like it's not, but there is a benefit of now those people are following you. And if you can create content that's really, really good, I mean, it'd be amazing. So here's an example of a guy who actually creates content. He started, he really started doing a lot of Instagram Instagram stuff. Maybe so he's been doing Instagram for a while. Like he's like posts like, oh, here's me doing this, here's me doing that. But he took what I've been doing and he did this literally every single day, which is like makes me feel dumb for not like being as committed to Instagram as I wanted to. So he started after me. But because of that, you can see the amount of likes that he's gotten has been increasing steadily since he started. This is at the Chris Doe. The Chris Doe. He's a good Instagram profile to follow. He gives amazing business advice. He and I, pretty good friends. I really recommend that you follow him. And to give you an idea of like how you can structure, really, really compelling content, pretty easily, right? So it kind of goes through like different aspects of like running a business. So if you can be this, so the goal that you want to do when you're doing Instagram is to be this person for whatever industry that you're in. So if you're selling drills, be this person for people who do yourself projects, right? Be this person if you're selling like, sweet potato pie. Be this person for some people who want to like, create great food, right? And I know there are a ton of people who are like teaching cooking guides here and there, but everyone has something different to bring when it comes to how you can essentially be a personality, right? Or when it comes to like learning new things. And like there is a group there, I guarantee you, to whoever you're selling to, there's a group of people who don't know things that things that you've struggled to learn that took you a month or year or years to learn. There are people who don't know that information. So if you can provide the same content, but with your spin and your insight that you gained, like you're going to get people who engage with your content, right? So this is just so he's a good example to follow if you want to see how you can essentially do this, create content effectively, right? So for me, I did the $80 strategy for about 7 days. I do everything that I preach to show you that it works. So I averaged out about 30 to 35, but the first week I got 62, right? So like again, it's not like a lot, but 62 likes over the course of, let's say, 10 days, that's 620 followers. 10 weeks. Do that, and again, if you expand it to more than that 9, you can easily see this double or triple or quadruple over time. So 62 things just by saying, hey man, this is pretty dope. I recommend you do X, Y, Z, taking 10 seconds of your time to do that. I mean, I think that's a pretty good return on investment, because those 60 people who are going to be pretty engaged when you make your next post, they're definitely going to see it because they followed you the most recently. So 62 more likes you're going to get on your post. Again, if you're leaving compelling, valuable feedback to people, right? So yeah, this is pretty much it. Next thing is networking. This is like the last topic here. Influencers are really, really powerful. They don't need to be huge people, right? Again, everyone focuses on like, I want to get The Rock or beyond. You don't need somebody who has 100,000 or 1 million likes or whatever. It can be very, very, very small. It could be like literally 5, 10K. like, 5K likes, 4K likes is pretty good influence, right? Or 10, I think the sweet spot is, I think, 10 to 50K, right? Is a sweet spot for influencers. There are ways for you to structure it so that when you post, when they post your content, and you can give them some sort of, affiliate code so you don't have to pay them up front. They post your content for whoever buys, they get like, $1 for every like purchase or whatever, like, and you can work that out yourselves. Like, this is between you and the influencer, but like, you can get a pretty good amount of people. And you don't need, and for you as a business owner, you don't need like 100,000 people, 100,000 likes on your post. All you're caring about is the people who actually go about buying. And because influencers have small targeted audiences that they've tried, all this thing that we're talking about right now, they've done this, and they've been doing this for years and years. They've built an audience who's super engaged. They've built an audience who trusts them, who trust their feedback and their decisions and their thoughts and their perspectives on life. So because of this, right, the chances of that audience buying are really, really high. If you only get 10, 20, 30 people who come from one post and buy whatever product that you're offering, like if you have a $100 offer and 10 people go and buy it, right? That's $1,000 you just made, like by telling somebody to make one post for you, right? So leveraging influencers to essentially grow your brand is a great way to do the minimum amount of work, because they'll create the content for you and get a pretty good ROI in terms of like the products that you have. But one of the things you need is you need to make sure that your profile is ready to receive that, or your website is ready to receive that influx of traffic, so that way it's not just going into like the universe and it's lost forever, right? So there are two types of interactions when it comes to influencers. You mentioned, so you essentially say, hey, you make a post and you tag, whatever person it is. So I'll give you an example of what I did on mine. So I made a post here about. So I wonder if I can show you I can't on here. Okay, I was going to try to show you this is one of my first posts. I think I got like 50,000 impressions on it. And I said why every founder needs to get a business credit card, right? And I tagged, who did I tag on this? Did I tag somebody else? Yes. So I tagged, Capital One, I tagged American Express, I tagged Citibank, Chase, all these other people. And that's why I got a massive amount of people coming from, their specific mentions to those specific profiles who follow them. Instagram, once I hit a certain threshold of activity, Instagram's like, okay, so this is actually valuable content. I want to show it to some of Chase's followers. I'm going to show it to some of Capital One's followers and Citi followers and so on and so forth, right? So for my last one, I was talking about pitch decks. I tagged, the Christo, I tagged the CEO of Blavity, Think Testing, and a few other people, right? And so because I hit a certain threshold, I got a good amount of engagement. And some of their followers other accounts that are similar to mine, it went from their profile and came to mine, right? So this is how you can essentially leverage their brand that they built, right? And use it to get yourself some followers. And the other one is they shout you out, whether it's through stories or whether it's through their post. They'll link to your profile and say, hey, yo, follow this person. He's really, really, really dope. And you'll get some followers that way, right? And we've all seen that share as an Instagram story post several times. So for example, here's an example of me shouting out one of my friends who actually got on Deal or No Deal. And I think I actually won, I believe, they won $1 million or something like that, which is like, lucky guy. And again, so this was seen by 1,000 people, and of those people, I think about like 400 of those folks or so went to their profile, right? And you see this all the time with like accounts who have grown massive followings, and all they do is steal content from other people, or they find amazing content that is popular to a niche, and they post consistent amazing content, and they'll tag the people who are relevant there, and then people like pay them for shout outs, right? And they'll reference, hey, this is a post by this person over here, go check out the profile, and you'll see a massive influx that way. So this is how you can go and find people who are, or accounts that are big in your profile, in your sector, and get, either you can send them a product, or you can say, hey, I'd love to get a shout out. You pay like $10, $20, $30 sometimes, and they'll shout you out, in a post if you have really cool content, right? So mentions are free. You only get a little bit of the following, but it does get you pretty easy traffic for you just posting stuff. So like, why not? You know what I mean? Like, just like whenever you make Instagram stories, they just mention this person, like, hey, this person's pretty cool. I think I love the work or like, hey, act person, what do you think about this? And they may even like actually like repost your story or repost your post that you have on your profile, right? Shout outs, you do have to, it could be free, you have to pay. You know, if one of the influencers are a customer, that's a free shout out if they really love your product, and people share, your customers share, products all the time. It's a great way to get, notoriety. Sometimes you just got to pay for it, and it really depends. If you're going to use like an actual influencer strategy and like actually get an influencer and get money involved with an actual influencer, I recommend just doing some sort of like per purchase payment fee. So you give them an affiliate link, say, hey, check out this thing right here, go do whatever, and that way you have people, they're incentivized to push people to go and click on the link to go to your website, and they'll buy your product specifically, and then you can say, okay, all of my products that were purchased yesterday, 30% came from this influencer, and they get X% of that purchase, right? Why not? I think it's essentially, I don't want to say it's free money because you are quote unquote paying for it, but in my opinion, it is free because that's money that those are audiences that you didn't have access to. That all you do is say, hey, I'm not paying you anything unless you actually deliver. And if you deliver, you get this amount, and I get this amount. Everybody wins, right? The issue that you run into is vetting is tough. So what I do is I see the influencers I'm talking to. There are several tools out there that you can go to like analyze. Is their engagement actually real? Or just check with people who have a YouTube account are the most credible social media influencers. If they have a YouTube account and they have a pretty decent following, you can almost guarantee that this person actually has will actually deliver and get some sort of conversion to happen. Okay, so that's like how I go about vetting the people I do on social media. Try to leverage both if possible. Right? No, never mind. Don't worry about that. Anyway, so that's the gist of it. Again, we're gonna send this all out to you. I know it was a lot. This is a really, really quick run through to get you guys at least thinking about the concepts of social media, using content marketing. We're working to create, again, going back to the thing that I was talking about here. We're working to create much more in-depth walkthroughs of all this stuff. So don't like stress out too much. Let me just see if we can find one real quick. Okay.
Yeah, we gotta wrap the recording, pal.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. We're working with much more in-depth guides to walk you guys through this stuff real quick. So just like understand that like this is just a quick intro,